Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to this educational presentation where today I'm going to talk to you about two methods that will change your trading. These are two methods that I was introduced to a long time ago and I continue to use. And let me show you how powerful and simple they are at the same time. All right, let's take a look at this older chart here. Here's an older chart in Microsoft. Or actually, no, this is a recent chart. I'm sorry. If we look at this, someone basically would be saying, well, there's not really much to see here. We're in a range market. In other words, every time we hit the top of this range, we go back down to the bottom of the range and so forth. So most traders would stay away or wait for something to happen. But here's the beauty of what we're going to be teaching you today. Because the first method I'm going to be teaching you actually generated a buy signal within that so-called range. And the buy signal was right here. Now, we know with all methods and strategies, not everything works 100% of the time. Some signals and some setups are actually more profitable than others. So you want a high probability setup to trade, something that's going to be a little more in your favor, put the odds in your favor. So the second method I'm going to be sharing with you actually confirmed the signal that it was a very high probability setup. So let's see what happens. Well, in the next 2 weeks, the stock shot up 35 points. So this is the subject we're going to be talking about today, two methods that will change your trading going into this year. We really think they'll elevate your trading in 2024. Here's the good news. This is not complicated at all. In fact, everything is one click away on our platform, the PTS Primo Charting platform. This is the educational platform I developed and designed with proprietary strategies that actually teaches you how to trade these two methods. So welcome, my name is Stephen Primo. I am the president and founder of Specialist Trading. I've been trading now for 47 years, nearly 5 decades. I started my career on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange. I was on the floor for 16 years, and 9 of those years I was a specialist. Specialist is someone who made markets in roughly about 50 or 60 stocks. So in those days, if you wanted to buy or sell something, there was no such thing as electronic trading. You actually had to call your stockbroker in the city. He in turn would call the floor trader on the floor of the exchange. The floor trader would take your order and walk up to the specialist. This was the person who specialized in making a market. So I did that during the crash of '87 and the bull market that followed. And in my 9 years I was on the floor, I traded and saw just about every method and every technique you can think of. I traded through every environment, straight up, straight down markets, sideways markets. And so I know what works in terms of consistency and I know what doesn't work. So that's why I formulated Specialist Trading around 15 years ago, with one goal, simply to teach traders how to trade and to pass along all the things I've accumulated in my nearly 5 decades of trading. And you'll see that education in today's presentation. Now, before we begin, we are required to share this with you, so please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results by applying these two methods, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. Also, since we are first and foremost an educational company, all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. Now, since we are an educational company, we like to provide education on a daily basis, so please feel free to follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you'd like to call it. There's lots of great free education I post on a daily basis, anywhere from signals that our strategies and methods have generated to little bits of financial wisdom. So there's lots of great free education on a daily basis. Please feel free to follow us on Twitter. Now, remember, as we stated, we are first and foremost an educational company. So what does this mean? Well, what it basically means is that a good educator is going to teach you how to trade, but he's not going to trade for you. So therefore, if you come here today thinking, I'm going to tell you what I think of the market, is it going higher? Is it going to top out? That really is up to you. We teach you all of the things so that you can decide for yourself. You see, that's what we feel is missing from most traders. They don't make their own decisions. You rely on going to a chat room or a trading room, or you rely on the earnings, or you rely on some economic report. But when you do those things, what you're doing is you're taking yourself out of the game. And because of this is why we feel the statistics show that 80 to 85% of all traders fail. It's because you take yourself out of the game. You're not making the decisions yourself. So what's missing is sound fundamental education, and that's the service we provide. So as you can see here, my goal is not to force feed you signals and tell you what I think the market's going to do. My goal is simply to teach you how to trade with a specialist edge. So hopefully you can be trading 10, 20, 30, 40 years instead of just maybe a couple of months, okay? Now, before we begin, as always, please ask me as many questions as possible, but I like to take the questions at the very end of class. So if you do have some questions, just write them down and try to remember them. I promise I'll get to each and every one of them. Also, this is being recorded, so if you have to leave early or if you're having technical issues, don't worry. Each and every one of you will be sent a link to this recording so you can watch it whenever you'd like, okay? All right, with that stated, let's begin today's educational presentation. I'd like to start out today's presentation with something that my mentors taught me, and they said, Steve, the market that you're trading, the actual market you're trading, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter if it's crypto, doesn't matter if it's stocks, doesn't matter if it's currency pairs, but the market that you're currently trading, regardless of time frame or direction, doesn't matter if it's a 10-minute chart or a monthly chart, doesn't matter if it's going straight up or straight down, but the market you're trading tells you everything you need to know. Now that goes against everything we've learned, right? Trading 101, we're always learned that everything we need to know comes from some guy on TV, or everything we need to know comes from the earnings report of the jobless claims, right? Or everything we need to know comes from some guy in some chat room. Well, see, this goes opposite of that, because once again, when you rely on those things, you're taking yourself out of the game. But when you rely on listening to the market, listening to the chart directly in front of you, after all, that's the source of what you're trading, right? When you rely on that, then you put yourself in that consistent category, all right? The only trouble is we're never taught on how to listen to the market. We're always taught to listen to someone or something else, but we don't know how to actually listen to what the market is telling us. Well, here's the good news. These are two methods that I'm going to be sharing with you today to help you listen to the market. Now, here's method number one. This is strategy number 4. All right. This is a fantastic method. I was first taught, like I said, decades ago on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange. Let me give you some of the highlights of this particular method. It's a pattern recognition strategy. In other words, we're looking for a pattern in any market and in any time frame that repeats itself over and over and over again. Now, it was originally designed for traders looking to catch momentum on a short-term basis. When I was on the floor, we used to apply this and we get in and out of a trade in a matter of minutes. But now we've developed ways to stay in it for days, weeks, even months if you'd like. Now, it only uses one indicator. I'm going to teach you what that indicator is today. So it's a very simple pattern recognition method. Let me share with you some older examples of how well strategy number 4 works. Okay, here's an older chart in VRSN. Excuse me. As you can see here, once again, we're kind of in a range market. We go to the top of the range, back down, back up. So this is what we're taught always to stay away from, right? Because this is where we get whipsawed. This is where we lose money. But the first thing we teach our students, regardless of what we think the market is doing, is to apply the 50-period moving average. And then once we apply the 50-period moving average, we ask ourselves, where are the majority of prices in relation to that 50-period moving average? And we can see the majority are closing above. So that means the overall trend is up. If the overall trend is up, we are only going to be looking for buy setups of this particular pattern. We're not going to be concerned with going short. Why? Because when price is above the 50-period moving average, the market, not me, not some guy on TV, but the chart in front of you, the market is telling you it wants to go higher on the overall trend. Okay? So why should we bet against it? Who are we to say, no, it's going to go lower? Why don't we just swim with the current at our back as opposed to trying to fight it? All right, so now we look for that pattern. And out of all these bars, we see that the pattern met all the requirements right here and generated a strategy number 4 buy signal. And guess what? The stock shot up 20 points, okay? See how simple this is. Now, this can also work to the downside. Let's take a look at this older chart in PINS. Someone looking at this would say, well, there's major support here, Steve. That chat room I went to says you've got to buy this because this is where all the institutions are buying. All right, well, once again, we don't train our students to listen to anyone or anything else. We train them to listen to the market. And the first way to do that is by applying the 50-period moving average. And then once you do that, then you ask yourself, where is price in relation to that 50-period moving average? Now, if it were above, as the previous example showed us, well, then the overall trend would be up. But most of the prices are below, so the overall trend is down. That means I don't care if some guy on TV or some institution is supposedly buying this. The market is telling me it wants to go lower. So that's the only thing I listen to. Now we look for only sell signals, and we look for that pattern that will generate sell signals. And guess what? It generated one right here. And look what happened in the following days. One of the best things about strategy 4 is that even if you miss the very first setup, it will give you many more opportunities to get back in and to get out if you like. Now, as with all methods, we always say this to our students right at the very beginning, nothing works 100% of the time. For example, as we look at this older chart in SIX, here's a sell signal. It meets all the requirements, the pattern, we're below the 50-period moving average. Let's say you decide to sell here. And then going forward for the next week, it continues to go the other way. And you say to yourself, wow, this isn't working too well. Maybe you even got stopped out. So you say, well, that's okay. You know, Steve says not every trade works. And then all of a sudden you get another sell signal. So you say, okay, I'm going to bet the farm on this one. I'll make back what I lost. And guess what? Not only do you lose on this one, but now price is above the 50. So now you shouldn't be selling at all because the market's telling you it wants to go higher. So you say to yourself, okay, well, 2 losses, I'll give it another chance. And then going forward another couple of weeks, we have 2 buy signals. All right. They both close above the 50-period moving average. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to make back everything I lost. I'll bet the farm here and it's all going to work out. And then this happens, right? So by now you're ready to throw your computer out the window and you say this Steve Primo guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, what if we could filter out some of these bad setups? Because remember, we know that not everything works 100% of the time. If that were true, then we would all be millionaires, right? Well, that second method is the PET-D. This is what we call our confirmation tool. This is another tool and another method that I learned some nearly 5 decades ago on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange. So let me share with you what the PET-D actually is. It's the best thing I know for determining the trend, because what it does is it signals on a tick-by-tick basis what the market wants to do. And this can help us tremendously, because normally we would see a chart like this and say, hey, this is just going too far down. Maybe you're long the stock. And when it gapped down here, you said, that's it. I'm going to get out with a loss. For all I know, this thing is going to zero. And the minute you get out, this usually happens. Now it's making new highs, right? So how could the PET-D have helped us? Well, the PET-D is a color bar tool, and it tells us on a tick-by-tick basis if the market wants to go down on the short term or go up on the short term by coloring the bars either green or red. So once we apply the PET-D, it's as simple as on our platform, click on PET-D, and the colors automatically change. Now, when you see anywhere from 3 to 5 consecutive red bars, that's telling you the market wants to go lower. So you wouldn't have had to wait for this news announcement right down here to convince yourself it was time to get out. You would have known well in advance up here it was time to get out. And on top of that, you wouldn't have missed this entire big move to the upside, because once we had 3 consecutive green bars, you would have known perhaps it was time to get back in. Okay? So as it says here, the beauty of the PET-D is that it tells you which direction you should be trading. And once you know, you can confirm if your strategy is in sync with that direction. So you see, the 50-period moving average tells you what the overall trend is. The PET-D tells you what the short-term trend is. So now do you see how simple it is? You don't have to look at 2 different time frames, a weekly time frame and a daily time frame, or a daily time frame and an hourly time frame. You just have to look at the 50-period moving average and the PET-D. It's that simple. Now, when we combine these 2 things, Strategy 4 and the PET-D, we have a combination that's called the dynamic duo. It's one of our most popular and powerful trading courses. We have students trading this around the world in over 115 countries and in virtually every state in the United States. Let me share with you the rules on how to apply the dynamic duo, okay? Now, if a strategy 4 buy signal is generated, you're only going to take the trade if the signal or setup bar is colored green by the PET-D, all right? That's the only way you'll do it. That means the bar above the green arrow also has to be colored green. We don't care about the bars before or after, just the bar above the green buy signal, right? Now, conversely, if a strategy 4 sell signal is generated, we're only going to trade the signal if the setup bar is colored red by the PET-D. So if the strategy generates a sell down arrow, the bar directly below that down arrow needs to be colored or outlined red. We don't care what the bar color is before or after. All we need to know is that the bar below it is colored red. And that's it. But by applying these 2 things together, you've increased your odds for consistency that much more. That's why we call it the dynamic duo. And that's why it's one of our most popular courses among students around the world. So let me share with you how easy it is to apply this process on the PTS Primo charting platform, okay? Because everything is one click away. All right, here's an older chart in APA, all right? We can see the stock initially went down, then had a really nice run up, then it went sideways and now back down again, all right? So how would we maneuver this? Well, click on strategy number 4, okay? Once you see the drop-down arrow appear, click on signal arrows, and you'll see all of the arrows being generated. Now, some of these signals are better than others. Here's a good one, here's a bad one, and so forth. So how could we have filtered out the bad ones and kept the best ones as best as we could? We apply the PET-D. So once again, it's as simple as going on our platform, clicking on the PET-D tab right here, and the colors will automatically change. Now remember, in order to take a signal, it has to have the right color. So here we have a sell signal, and the color below it was red. So that was a valid dynamic duo sell signal, and you can see you could have potentially captured a quick 5 points. Not a bad little trade, right? Now look at the next sell signal, all right? What color was the bar below it? It's green. Remember, in order for this to be a dynamic duo sell setup, we need to have that bar below that red. So we would not have taken this setup, and we would not have lost this money. Okay, see how the PET-D kept you out of trouble. Now our next signal is a buy signal. So in order for us to take this, the bar above the buy arrow needs to be colored or outlined green, and it is. So that was a valid dynamic duo buy signal. And look at 8 points we could have potentially captured. All right, now here we have a series of buy setups. All right, so for all we know, hey, these are going to be good setups, but what color are the bars, the price bars above the green arrows? They're all outlined red. So we would not have taken any of these setups, and that would have been a great thing because look at the loss we would have had, okay? So the best trades are the ones you never take when they don't work out. So instead of having a series of just a couple of winners, but mainly losers, you would have filtered them all out and only had a couple of winners. This is the beauty of that dynamic duo, okay? It has high probability setups, and it filters out those setups that aren't really going to work in your favor. All right, so now that you know the process, let me run you through some recent setups. Most of these happened within the last 2 or 4 weeks, okay? All right, here's an example in Costco. All right, looks like the market's going up. We have a nice uptrend, right? But then look what happened in mid to late January. It went right back down. So now, what is it? Is it a downtrend? So most traders don't have any idea what this market is doing, but that's not true because strategy 4, which incorporates its first rule, the 50-period moving average, and the required pattern, are saying, wait a minute, if we click it on and we click on the signal arrow in the drop-down menu, it's saying there's a buy signal actually right here. So don't worry about these old worn out ways of determining the trend. There's an actual buy signal right here. But remember, it may be a faulty buy signal, so we want to take it up a notch and make it a little bit more consistent. So we click on the PET-D and see if this bar is colored either green or red. Guess what? It's colored green. Not only is this bar green, but all the bars were green, telling you that even though we went lower, we're in a short-term uptrend. So all we're concerned about is the bar above the green arrow. And look what happened coming into this last week. Costco rallied up 27 points, okay? You think you could have taken advantage of that nice quick trade? Here's another example. This one was in Microsoft we started out the presentation with. Remember we said this is in a range market and this is where you usually want to stay away from? Well, if we click on strategy 4, in the drop-down menu, click on signal arrow, it automatically told us there was a buy setup right here. Now, sure, we could take this buy setup, but remember, not all buy setups are going to work. So we want to make sure it's a high probability setup. Let's apply the second part, the second method of the dynamic duo, which is the PET-D. And even though the colors were spattered red, green, the bar above is the only one we're interested in. And what color is it? It's outlined green. So this is a valid dynamic duo buy signal and 35 points coming into the past week. Now, this works with institutional support as well. Remember, we said how many traders will buy these $10,000 programs or courses relying on what the institutions are saying. This is just another way to listen to an outside source, another way to take you out of the game. I used to trade with the institutions on the floor of the stock exchange, and trust me, they had the worst track record of any traders I knew. I would never in my life think of following what they're doing because they were always losing. So why would I want to follow a losing trader? So even though it may look as if there's support here based off the banks buying and all the big money, and even may look as if they're taking off, what is the market telling me? Well, we click on strategy 4, click on signal arrows, and it generated actually 2 signals here. All right, which one should we have taken? Well, we apply the PET-D. Once again, that'll tell us the high probability setup. And the first one was valid. So we could have taken this very first signal that we saw and avoided this one, okay? Now, depending on where you placed your stop, you could have held off for another week or so, but ultimately it kicked in and you could have potentially captured 12 points. Or if you were long the stock, what a lot of traders, a lot of students of ours who trade the dynamic duo do, they don't like to go short, but they'll use it as an exit tool, okay? If they get a valid dynamic duo sell signal, they won't short the stock, but they'll exit their long position. And this way you would have saved yourself 12 points. Here's an example in CTAS, Census Corporation. All right, we're obviously in a downturn here, right? Well, not according to strategy 4, because strategy 4 would only generate a buy signal if it's above the 50-period moving average. That's incorporated already within the requirements. So in order to take this to the next level, we want to apply the PET-D, and we see that, yes, the bar above it is green. So that's a valid signal to take. 40 points coming into last week, okay? You potentially could have captured. How about news? Now, I know a lot of you say, well, Steve, this is all great, but when news comes out, I'm always on the wrong side. News will take out all of this. Nothing will matter if it's a bad news report and you're long, or if it's a good news report and you're short. Well, sure, I'm not going to tell you that this works 100% better than the news, but it's been my experience that the market, since we started out this presentation with what my mentors told me, the market tells you everything you need to know. Many times the market will tell you in advance of a news event. For example, let me share with something that happened just last week. This was last Friday, not even a week ago. On the 2nd of February, Amazon reported that the stock jumped as earnings show retail strength and cloud momentum. Okay, Amazon stock jumped Friday after the tech behemoth reported quarterly results ahead of expectations for both earnings and revenue. Okay, so you get the gist. This was great, great fundamental news, right? Now, trust me, I don't look at news. I stopped looking at news some 5 decades ago when my mentor said there's absolutely no reason to look at news. And trust me, I haven't looked at news since. So I had no idea this information came out. And I tell my students that there's no need to look at news if you don't want to. Now, this came out on the 2nd of February. If we look at the chart, it was right here. Now, if you're looking to buy Amazon, well, you would have had to buy somewhere on the opening. And sure, you would have had a profit at the end of the day, but most likely it would have been very small as compared to buying it somewhere down here. Well, but that's exactly what strategy 4 did, because strategy 4 generated 2 buy signals weeks in advance of that news, right towards these recent lows. And on top of that, they were both confirmed PET-D, or I should say, both confirmed dynamic duo setups, because the PET-D colored them green. So had you bought off this news, you had very limited gains. But buying here, you could have potentially captured 20 points. So this is the beauty. Not to tell you that it's guaranteed that these dynamic duo setups will always be in sync prior to the news, but it's been my experience that the market always tells you what it wants to do, and many times in advance. Let's look at this sell signal in ADM, okay, Archer Daniel Midland, all right? It's a valid strategy 4 sell signal. We apply the PET-D and we see that it's colored red. Even though the bar before is green, that's okay. It's a valid dynamic duo sell signal. The stock fell 20 points. Isn't it funny how a couple of weeks after that signal was generated, some news happened where it fell out of bed? Remember, this is in advance many times of a bad news announcement or an earnings report. Here's an example in Meta, okay? 2 valid dynamic duo setups here in mid-January. Potentially could have captured 115 points. And once again, it gapped up off some announcement. It's funny how we knew weeks in advance. Now we have 3 sell signals in Humana, all right? Which ones should we take? Well, these are valid dynamic duo setups, but this one wasn't. So we would not have taken that one because it didn't fit all the rules of the dynamic duo. But that's okay, we'll still short. If we decided to say short, well, we could have potentially once again captured 115 points. All right, Here's something that happens often, and so don't get discouraged. Many times you'll see a buy signal, but it's colored red, so you're not going to take it. And then you decide not to take it because it doesn't fit the dynamic duo rules. And look what happens. The next day it jumps up. But here's the thing. Many times the very next day, it will be a valid signal. So that's okay. Remember, don't worry about getting it at the very lows or getting the first setup, because all we're concerned about is getting a high probability setup. So this was a high probability dynamic duo buy signal. And even though you didn't get in one bar previous, guess what? You could have still potentially captured 150 points coming into last week. And lastly, we look at ARGX. Here's a valid sell signal. It's colored red, down 120 points, okay? For some reason, it gapped down based on some news. It's funny how we knew weeks in advance. Now, the market rallied after that, okay? So should we go long? Well, let's punch up strategy 4 again. Nope, another valid strategy number 4 and PET-D dynamic duo sell signal. So 40 more points you could have captured, all right? Now, let me share with you some extra advantages to trading with the dynamic duo in different markets and different time frames. For example, here's an example of an actual signal that was generated in the dynamic duo just a few weeks ago in CEG. That was a sell signal, but once we applied the PET-D, what color was the bar below it? It's green. So this is telling us not to take the trade. Do not take this. And that was a great idea because if you did take it, potentially you could have lost 18 points in the following 5-7 days. Same thing with Tesla. Here was a buy signal in mid-January, okay? But once we apply the PET-D to make the dynamic duo requirements, what color is the bar? It's red. It's outlined red. So we do not want to take this trade. And that was a great idea once again because the dynamic duo setup saved us 60 points to the downside. Potentially, we could have lost. This is how traders lose money because you're listening to an outside source. The market was telling you through the PET-D translator that it didn't really want to go higher. Even though that pattern was met, the short-term time frame was saying, no, we're still in a short-term downward move. Now, we know not everyone trades stocks, so here's a 4-hour chart of the euro Swiss franc, okay? It meets this exact same rules. Nothing changes because we trade markets, we go to currency pairs, and nothing changes because we go to a 4-hour time frame. The rules are exactly the same. If we have a buy signal, the bar above it needs to be colored or outlined green, and it was. So this is a valid dynamic duo buy signal on the 4-hour chart of the euro Swiss franc, and 100 pips in the next 2 days. That's $1,000 potentially per unit. Now here is a daily chart of the Swiss franc, okay? 2 valid dynamic duo sell signals were generated. Their strategy 4 signals both colored red by the PET-D, and they actually fell 650 pips. That's over $6,500 per unit potentially you could have captured. And once again, don't worry if you don't get the first signal because many times another one is generated and you can still capture some profits, okay? Now, what a lot of traders like to do is use this for positions, okay? Let's say you're a swing trader or a long-term investor. As I stated earlier, if you had a position in Pfizer, as we see here in this weekly Pfizer chart, let's say you don't like to go short stocks, but you're more interested in using the dynamic duo as an exiting tool. Well, once you saw these continuous dynamic duo sell setups, that would have been a really strong red flag to exit the stock. And you could have saved yourself basically about 15 points had you used this as an exit tool. Now that's if it was going lower. If it was going up, we know a lot of traders like to buy. So here's a weekly chart of Netflix. A dynamic duo buy signal was generated. We had the buy signal and it was above with a green bar. And on a weekly time frame, the stock gained 180 points potentially you could have captured. So it doesn't matter what market, what time frame, what direction. You can apply the PET-D and strategy 4 dynamic duo to any and all markets. Okay, let's recap. The 2 valid and important methods we taught you today. The first one was strategy 4. It listens to the market by looking for a pattern, okay? This pattern was repeated over and over again. Now, the first rule of strategy 4 is we apply the 50-period moving average. And if you don't think that's that valid of a rule, go back to your last 10 or 20 trades and apply a 50-period moving average on the chart that the signal was generated. I can almost guarantee you that the reason why you had some losing trades is because your signal generated a buy below the 50-period moving average and a sell above it. Remember, that simple rule will really help to make you a lot more consistent. Now, strategy 4 is a very consistent method. Once again, I use this on a daily basis, but every once in a while, it will generate some losers, some flawed signals. So how can we keep our levels of consistency at a high level? Well, by applying the second method, and that's the PET-D. This is another method I learned nearly 5 decades ago on the floor. It's basically a translator. It translates on a tick-by-tick basis what the market wants to do. It's a color bar tool. It tells you the direction of the market. And the way we use it with strategy 4 is we combine the two. If strategy 4 generates a buy signal, then the PET-D has to color that bar green. If strategy number 4 generates a sell signal, the PET-D has to color that bar red. When you combine it this way, we have what we call our dynamic duo, one of our most successful trading courses we have around the world. And then lastly, you saw how simple this is to apply with one click on the PTS Primo charting platform. So there you have it. Putting it all together, you have a synergy for success with all of these things combined in your trading. So ask yourself, do you think these two methods combined with our platform can help your trading in 2024? I really think your answer is yes. So because of that, we have a great attendee discount for all of you today. We're going to offer you our dynamic duo special. This is strategy 4 along with the PET-D tool. You'll get instant course access along with detailed instruction. In the course, or I should say in our webinar I just presented right now, I didn't tell you anything about entries. I didn't tell you anything about exit points or stop placement. I go over all of that in the course, so you know exactly where you'd like to apply all these different categories. All right, you'll get all the automatic buy and sell arrows that are generated. You'll get the complete course rules. Here's another great thing, the PET-D, okay? The PET-D will also include 4 separate and unique trading techniques, okay? These are all separate and different from strategy number 4 because there are different ways, there are probably dozens of ways to apply the PET-D. And you can use these 4 separate PET-D trading techniques along with strategy 4. So there's lots of different ways to trade using our dynamic duo special. But remember, the last component of this special is the PTS Primo charting platform. So we're going to offer, also included, 12 months of this platform. Remember that we showed you everything was one click away. Now, 12 months would normally cost you close to $1,800. We're going to offer 12 months absolutely free. If you become a member of my dynamic duo course, you'll get a full year free of the platform. Now, the great thing about this, I don't think most students realize, is that, well, yeah, you get the platform. All I'm getting is the dynamic duo. Well, that's not true. You're getting a host and literally dozens of things that I've accumulated that you won't find anywhere else. Things I've accumulated in my nearly 50 years of trading, things I took from the floor and I've been using for over 4 decades now. Things like, or including with the 12 months free, you'll see things like our signal auto-generated exit levels, okay? These are just one click away. You'll see exit levels and they're automatically on the platform. A strength of trend tool. It tells you whether the trend still has some strength in it or if it's running out of gas. You'll get, along with that, the trading strategy 4, along with the PET-D directional tool and the 4 separate little techniques. But here's what I think is the most popular thing on our platform. It's the signal scanner. I have a pet peeve with most platform signal scanners. Trust me, I've traded most of the popular trading platforms out there, and that's what's helped me develop the PTS Primo charting platform, because I knew what to keep and what to leave out. And I made our signal scanner really simple. It only takes probably a matter of seconds to generate setups on a nightly basis. Now, let's say I had given this presentation a couple of weeks ago and you became a student of mine and you had access to all of this. Well, you could have used the signal scanner this past week. Let me share with you some of the setups you could have generated. For example, let's look at this chart here in COHR. Now, had you scanned on the night of the 1st and the 2nd, you would have seen that there were buy signals generated using strategy number 4. Now, all you had to do on our platform was click on the PET-D, and you would have seen that they were both colored green. So what do you have here? You have 2 consecutive dynamic duo setups. Now, this was just last Friday, okay? The last setup was last Friday, not even a week ago. And the stock jumped and gapped up yesterday, 12 points in just 3 days. So you see how simple this is and how easily you could have taken advantage of this just in this past week, okay? And actually, I took this snapshot yesterday. I believe the stock is even higher today. Now, included with that was an example in CHTR, that's Charter, okay? Once again, doesn't look like anything happening. Let's say you were following this stock and you saw this downward move. This was on the 2nd, on Friday, all right, 3 days ago. You would have said to yourself, wow, okay, I was interested in this stock, but I'm not going to do anything more. Now it's probably going down, and I would like to short it if I, thought it was higher, but most likely it's gone as low as it's going to go because it gapped down. Well, let's do a scan. Had you scanned, you would have seen on the night of the 2nd that there was a valid strategy for sell signal still in play on that downward day. And if you applied the PET-D, you would have seen that that bar was colored red. So this is a valid dynamic duo sell signal, even after it gapped down. And look what happened in the next 2 days. The stock fell 30 more points in just 2 days. Now, this just happened just this last 3 or 4 days ago. So these signals are happening all over the place. And they're happening all the time, all right? I know you've gone to webinars before. I know I have. And it's so frustrating when you see all these fantastic setups like you're seeing right now, and then you look at the date, and they're like 6 or 7 months old, maybe even a year old, right? It's always discouraging. You say to yourself, well, yeah, that worked. You're cherry picking something that worked a year or two ago. How about something that worked in the last week? Well, I just gave you 2 examples, and they're happening over and over again. We're already in the 2nd month of 2024. Can you believe it? We're already in February. You owe it to yourself to start the year off strong while we're still in the beginning of 2024 and in the right direction. Take advantage of this great offer, okay? Here's the discount we have, all right? All right, we're going to offer you our dynamic duo combo plus a full year of the PTS Primo charting platform. Now let's break this down. If we didn't have this special today, and if you purchase these separately, Strategy 4 would cost you close to $700. The PET-D by itself would cost you close to $5,000. And remember, once again, the PTS Primo charts for a full year would cost you close to $1,800. So if you purchase these separately, you're going to be looking at over close to $7,500. And that's way too much to spend, especially at the beginning of the year. So here's the great offer and the great discount we have for you today. We're going to offer you a deep discount, a one-time payment of only $497. Think of it, less than $500. You can get all of this. You can be set up as early as today. All you have to do is put a one-time down payment of $497 and then establish a payment plan of $97 a month. That's it. And you can be up and running, and you could have taken advantage of signals like that I just shared with you that happened just last week, okay? Now, if you want to pay in full, we'll still give you a discount. You're not going to have to pay $74.55. We'll reduce it down to $49.95. So either way you'd like to go, pay in full, $49.95, you're still going to get I believe, a nearly 30% discount, or the one-time payment, the deep discount at $497 with a payment plan of $97 per month. Each way you decide to go, you'll still get a full year free of the platform, okay? So here's how to take advantage of this. Contact my sister site, Pro Trader Strategies. They're in charge of all the discounts and all of the course information, and as well as all of the tech support. I would highly recommend giving them a call at area code 310-598-6677. They have trading consultants manning the phones right now. They would be more than happy either to take your order or just answer any question that you may have. There's absolutely no obligation. They would be happy to take any information and just give you a quote once again and tell you how long it's lasting for. But remember, this is only for a limited time, so I would really call them quickly if you're interested at all. Now, that link you see at the very bottom is the link that will take you to the info page as well as the sign up page if you'd like to sign up online. It's not a live link, but if you go to your chat box on the Zoom little icons there, you'll see a little drop down icon that says chat. Click that on and you'll see that they've just posted a live link there, okay? And that will automatically open up your browser and take you to that link, okay? Now, I told you I would reserve the last portion of this for any questions, so if you do have them, kindly go to your chat box or go to your question and answer box, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Someone saying, is this a live course? No, this is not a live course because we came out with a dynamic duo some time ago, but this is a video course. It's an online course of that actual class. So you're getting roughly about 2 hours of what happened in the class. And on top of that, each and every one of you will be able to get my private email address where you can contact me whenever you'd like, okay? So if you do have a question concerning what you learned, don't worry. I know so many other websites, they just give you the information and that's the last you ever hear from them. Remember, we are first and foremost an educational company. Our job is to teach you how to trade. So we're giving you this information. And then if you have questions, you can always contact me and I'll be happy via email to answer them. You can email me on the weekend, email me before the opening or after the close. It makes absolutely no difference, okay? Any more questions? How long is this offer? This offer usually just lasts till the next week, okay? So most likely this time next week, it'll be gone and it'll be back up to that over $7,000 range. So you don't really, if you're at all interested, by all means, watch this video. You'll get this video again and watch it again. But please, if you're interested and really serious about becoming a student of mine in the Dynamic Duo course, take advantage of this great, great offer. Remember, for less than $500, you can be up and running as early as today. We have a great tech support department and they can set you up on your computer, okay? Any more questions? Good questions. Any more? Okay, if there are no further questions, remember, I would highly suggest if you have questions after this and you said, oh, I forgot to ask Steve this, don't hesitate. You can call up 310-598-6677 and the trading consultants will be happy to answer any questions concerning the Dynamic Duo course. And remember, there's no obligation. They just are there to work with you, all right? They're very flexible. As we close, I just want to say thank you for attending. I know you have important things to do on this Wednesday afternoon, so thank you for coming. I hope you actually learned something as you look at one last time here at our disclaimer. But as we close, I really think this is a great method to get you started for 24. So I look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the Dynamic Duo course. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best of luck in trading, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.